have women here that want to meet the right guy. That's why they're here. How does a woman know if a guy is the right guy?
So I'm Easy Dating Coach. So I want to make this so freaking easy for all of you so that you all just like that. Here's the answer. And that's kind of what happened. There was a science experiment done in the last few years. This is brand new stuff that everyone should be talking about because it's so stinking easy. And this is the thing. So they attach some things to people's brains, and I'm going to butcher this, but basically they wanted to see what was causing successful marriages, what was causing marriages that were not happy. So they stuck things to the brain, and they found out that when they were asking questions, the happy relationships, the amygdala lit up like a Christmas tree, and the unhappy ones, it didn't. And it was all about when they found out that the partner was giving. So the amygdala lit up. These were the happy relationships, and these were people describing what their relationship was like. And so what the heck does this mean? How do you interpret this? So when you meet a man and he is in a happy mood and is willing to give to you, then you're in good shape. If he is not happy and not willing to give, when you say, hey, you'd make me the happiest woman in the world if you'd take me on a date, if you do X, and he's like, ooh, I'd love to give. I'd love to do that. Let me do that. Then you've got a good guy and you can be in a happy marriage. And so how else does that show up, Michelle? It also shows up, if we look at the Gottman study on like simple stuff. Like, hey, if Michelle and I are talking and I go, hey, we're in the park and we go on a walk in the park and I'm like, hey, Michelle, check out those cool birds over there. And you acknowledge and go, ooh, I like the blue one. See, what happens in our relationships, especially over 20, 10, 50 years, is we stop paying attention. And then sometimes we don't acknowledge the bird. And if you keep repeating that, you keep getting -1 point. And really you need, a +10 with your partner. So then when bad stuff does happen, you've got the energy to sustain when something bad happens. So really you're finding a person that's giving and that consistently shows up and acknowledges when you're speaking, when you're pointing things out. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that the giving piece, it obviously goes both ways, right? It goes both ways where both parties are giving. And I think there's that energetic exchange. Yes, sometimes you go through periods where one might give more than the other. Someone's going through a hard time or that sort of thing. But there's that energetic exchange. And then the other thing that I said, that I think you said that was really important, that I just want to put the exclamation point on, Mike, is I think paying attention, like especially when you're in a relationship over a period of time, you're not just paying attention to the bird, like the example, but you're paying attention to the things your partner does well, does right, and you don't just start taking them for granted or stop appreciating those things. Because you can speak to this as a man. One of the reasons that a man would like to provide that date or that request for a woman is that he's going to get appreciation, acknowledgement for it. He's going to be providing something that the woman is going to value.
Absolutely. Like we know that, if you're on date, 200 with your guy or even date 5 and he opens the door for you or pays for the dinner or helps you with your jacket. If you're on day 200, maybe you start forgetting to say thank you. And he's like, for a while, he's like, it's day 200, fine. But these things start adding up. And if he stops getting his thank yous and stop getting his appreciation, he's going to start shutting down and start doing less. But as long as he continues to get it, then he's going to keep going and feel motivated. So that's a great point.
Mm-hmm. So one way we can know that a guy is the right guy, or at least has the potential to be the right guy, is noticing how he's showing up over a period of time. And I always tell women to look for patterns, right? A pattern over time. Is he generally a giving, generous, kind person? Is he able to respond to your requests, your wants and needs? Does he want to respond, right? Does he want to? And so I think that's an important thing to pay attention to. And this, I just want to mention this, but I don't want to go down this track because I don't sense that's where we're going in this interview. But in order for a guy to be able to give, and a woman needs to be able to receive, right? And so that's an important thing to remember. And I always tell women, wherever possible, say yes to what he has to offer, as long as it's not against your moral values or your standards or your boundaries or that kind of thing. Get in the habit of saying yes, because so many women, especially more independent or a little bit older women who have had to kind of do everything by themselves for a period of time, get in that habit of just kind of saying, I got this, or at least they have that I got this energy. And yes, if you want to see if a man has that capacity to give to you, there has to be that space for him to give, which means you have to be able to receive.
Absolutely. And, can I talk about the biggest pitfall in this?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I see women doing, and I've seen it in my own relationships as well, and it's so counterintuitive. Women will be like, all right, I want him to give more. I'm going to be the model of giving. Let me show him how to do this. And so then women start giving more. And so what happens is maybe it started in the early parts of the relationship. It was 50-50 in giving. And then maybe he starts going down to 30. You're still at 50. And you're like, all right, I'm going up to 70. And then we're going to get him back up. And then we'll meet. And this will be the most amazing relationship. But what happens is you give more. And a man just he analyzes this as efficiency. He's like, all right, I got my partner. If I keep doing this, everything's fine. So he just stays at 30. And now you go and you're looking at this and you're like, this doesn't seem equitable. Like, I'm doing up here and he's down there. So you start resenting him. He's like, I don't even realize I'm doing anything wrong. So he stays where he is. And now he's like, why does she not like me? Now I want to give even less because I'm not getting my appreciation. So in reality, what needs to happen when you're still here and he's down here is you need to ask for what you want. And you say, hey, it would make me really happy if you did X. And then when he does it, giving him appreciation. So that's how we get him back up here. And unfortunately, men are going to typically slide because once they get their partner, they kind of like, all right, I got her. Don't need to plan those fancy dates anymore. And that's typical. But if you say, hey, I love you. You're fantastic. You'd be amazing if you took me on a date. He's like, ooh, I'm fantastic. I do want to do some stuff. And then you can get them back. And you kind of have a conversation explaining like, hey, you miss the early courting stages. And you even look at yourself, like, how did I behave in the early stages? Was I more fun? Did we play more? Where am I at? And you both continue to date, whether you've been dating for 20 years, 2 months, or 50 years. Like, let's date each other and let's have that fun all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's so important, too, I think, for women to realize that when you start over-functioning or over-giving, you might think that that's going to cause him to want to give more, but it usually, because I always, the word I use is men are efficient. They're efficient. And if you're like doing it all, then he's going to just kind of go, well, she's got this. I can kind of kick back. And you're not necessarily inspiring him to do more. It's more likely to have the opposite effect. And the other thing that I think is really key here is that when men give, when men provide something, whether it be, a date, a dinner, a kind gesture like helping you on with your coat or opening the car door or whatever, I think it's important for women to remember we don't have to give back in kind. That doesn't mean you have to buy him a dinner if he bought you a dinner. And I'm not saying there's never a place for that, but I'm saying you don't have to do this quid pro quo thing. It's more like what he really longs for, what's going to mean even more for him is that he's acknowledged, appreciated, recognized, and valued for those things that he's providing and offering. That's what he wants more than just for you to, match him, dinner to dinner or date to date or whatever. Now, that doesn't mean that after you've dated, you can't invite him over for dinner or that you can't treat him or those kinds of things. But I think that we have to be careful about that because I think sometimes those quid pro quo kind of things set us up for more of a friendship or kind of business type relationship rather than a romantic relationship. It's like if I'm going out to dinner with a friend, we're going to go 50-50 or she'll treat this time and I'll treat the next time or whatever. And we don't necessarily want that exact kind of energy in a relationship if it's a possible romantic relationship.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the male perspective, like payment enough for me is hearing like, wow, this, if we go out to dinner, this salmon I had was so freaking good. Mike, thank you for taking me here. Like, I'll be like, yeah, did it. Let's go. Like, that's all we need. And that's typical for most men.
Yeah, in fact, I remember talking to John Gray about that exact same thing one time. And he said, if you are complimenting a man, like if you're letting him know how much you enjoyed the restaurant or the salmon or whatever, the movie, whatever, it's like he cooked the salmon himself. It's like he created the movie himself. Him being able to provide that experience for you, he is going to feel like, oh, wow, I am winning. I'm good, And so I don't think we as women necessarily recognize how powerful that is and how meaningful it really is for a man.
Oh, yeah.
So you can back me up on this. So
100%.
So I want to ask you another question, Mike, and coming back to how to know if he's the right guy. How do you think a woman should feel around a good guy or the right guy? What should she feel?
Oh, that's such a great question. So first of all, the way you feel should be the same when you're with them and when you're not with them. It's so important. But you should feel happy, not anxious, and it should be fun and it should be easy. And you should be feeling great. Like, I found a good guy. It shouldn't be a roller coaster where when we're together, and this happens so often, where you're together and it's like, wow, this guy's so much fun to be around. It's fantastic. And then when he, maybe he disappears for a few days and now you're like, where'd he go? Where'd my knight in shining armor go? I don't feel so great right now. It should just be a nice, think about, instead of a roller coaster where you're going up and down, you're just, the part where you're going up the hill. It's nice and steady. And I feel comfortable. I feel safe. And I feel happy and content. It shouldn't be a roller coaster of emotions. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. In fact, I did an entire YouTube video on these two things. How do you feel with him? How do you feel when you're not with him? And I think the reason this is so important is because if you feel excited or attraction or good with him, but you don't feel good when you're not with him, it may be a relationship that's based mainly in chemistry, or you may not have that kind of connection where you can just feel comfortable and secure and knowing that things are just kind of moving along and progressing in the way that they're meant to. And the tricky part about this, Mike, is that these kind of relationships that are kind of more like the roller coaster can be kind of addictive. Like that adrenaline of like the suspense. Does he like me? Does he not like me? Is he going to call? Is he not going to call? Where is this at? That kind of suspense on an ongoing basis could be almost a little addictive, but it's not really typically the sign of a healthy relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, to dive a little deeper, like there's misalignment in something when there's a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. Like maybe one person wants exclusivity, one just wants to date around. Maybe they don't see, maybe one of you is like, this is 90% ready for my life partner. And the other person is like, it's 80%. And ultimately, we want closer to 100% where you're both like, wow, this could really fit. And so if we're at 80 and 90%, well, then that's what's causing misalignment. And we're kind of settling. And we may not realize it because we're like, when we're together, it's amazing. And, relationships aren't perfect. Well, they're not. But the alignment of the relationship should be. And the alignment should feel like when we're not together, I know they're not cheating. I know what they're doing. I feel safe because it's just totally aligned where it's like, man, we see eye to eye on everything. And you don't need to be worried because everything's aligned. So why would they be looking at other women? Why would they be dating outside of it? We've got this really strong bond and great communication and our values are aligned. And it just makes sense. And it makes sense more than, these other relationships I've been in the past. Like, this is beautiful. If you don't have that, most likely you didn't find your right partner. If you don't feel like everything's aligned, like don't settle. I know no one wants to settle watching this, but we tend to because we're like, wow, let me evaluate this guy. Great job, beautiful home, good looking, easy to talk to. Like, he's got this great stat sheet. I'm going to keep going. But hold on. Are our values really aligned? How do I feel when he's not around? So all I'm saying is take the time. You get one life partner, be patient and take the time to get there, and don't settle for something that's 80% of the way there.
I think that this is really important what we're talking about here, because I met and married my husband at age 43. So I was out there in the world of dating and being single for a long period of time, dated a lot of people. And a lot of these relationships that I was in, it felt like things kind of came close, but it still felt like we were trying to it was kind of a forced fit, like we're trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole. And there were a lot of times where I felt that drama or that insecurity or that fear when I wasn't with the guy that I was dating and wondered what was happening. So it was more the roller coaster kind of thing. And then when I met my husband, Benjamin, and we started dating, things just seemed to kind of like naturally progress in a very comfortable way. And it didn't feel like there was any manipulation or control or that one of us was way more into it than the other. It just felt like things were naturally and gracefully progressing. And, it felt like we were just moving together through this process of getting to know each other, establishing a deeper bond and connection, and ultimately deciding to get married. And it was different. There was a distinct difference between that and what I had experienced in some of these earlier relationships. So I think what we're talking about here is so important and really, really key, that if it feels like there's something off in terms of you don't feel good when you're not with that person, or you're feeling a need to want to control or manipulate, or feel like you're being controlled or manipulated, or that it feels like a forced fit, something is off. Even if you can't identify it, this is probably not your right guy.
So accurate. Like 100% agree with everything you're saying. And I feel like when I I know when I look at the hundreds of relationships I've seen get together and I've heard their stories, literally it's always that story where it just fit and it goes. If it doesn't fit and it goes, it's probably wrong. Just simple as that.
Yeah, if you're in the struggle, if you're feeling like it's a struggle, that's not a good predictor of a good long-term relationship. And I think one of the keys about this, though, is those kind of relationships can be kind of intoxicating and even addictive sometimes, because we get used to that drama, and that there's kind of adrenaline around that roller coaster ride. And some of us get to be kind of relationship adrenaline junkies.
Yeah,
right?
That's not fun.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's not fun. There's a certain point when you go, I got to get off this roller coaster or I'm going to lose my cookies. I got to get off this thing, right?
Yeah, roller coasters were fun in our teenage years, maybe early 20s, but now all of a sudden we're like, man, I just got off this roller coaster. My head hurts. Like, I don't know about this.
Exactly. So what is a woman's role in a relationship with a guy and helping her to get her needs met and for her to be happy?
Yeah. It goes back to what we were talking to earlier, where it's like she doesn't just, giving more is not going to magically make him give more. So very simply, she just needs to speak with what she needs. Obviously men are not mind readers. We don't know what you need, and every woman's different. And even when we've been with a woman for 10 years, needs change. Who you were 10 years ago is not who you are now. And that's the fun of a relationship, is it's re-exploring each other. But so what should a woman do is very simply, in an amazing, feminine, awesome way, say, here's what I want. And the phrase I like, and you can change it, but you would make me the happiest woman in the world if you did X. You literally can use this on everything. And just so you know, I teach this, and the women that I've dated in the past would literally use this on me. I would know that it is my move, my trick, and I still absolutely loved it. And I'd be like, you want me to do what? You're going to be happy? I got you. I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and and it's true. I think you're bringing up a couple of really important points. One is a woman needs to be in tune enough with what she wants and needs and have the confidence to ask and at least give a man an opportunity to respond. Now, it may be that a man can't respond to absolutely every single thing that she might ask or wish for, but a good guy, the guy that really wants to be there for you, is going to want to do that if it's possible more often than not. And my husband and I have been married for a while now, and like even today, Mike, this is a perfect example of what you're talking about. He knew that I had a really, really busy day today. And so he emailed me and just said, I know you're having a really busy day. Hope it's going well. What can I do for you today to make your life easier? And so that was, of course, really sweet of him. If we were coaching men, we might tell them that would be a really sweet thing to do. But I am in tune with my needs. I haven't had time to really eat or fix myself food today or whatever. And so I just said, I'm so appreciative that you offered and you can help me. And what would really help me is that you could bring in some dinner. And I gave him a couple of things that sounded good. And so I'm like tuning into that and I'm giving him that opportunity. I'm saying yes to what he offered. I'm letting him help me. Now, could I find something around the house to eat? Sure. But this is something that would be easier for me and it's nice and he's offering. And I'm tuning into my needs of what would make me feel good right now.
Yes, I love this example, Michelle. You're such a rock star. And I'm sure there's so many independent women out there. And Michelle is an independent woman and Michelle's wildly capable, obviously. Michelle could have picked up the phone, ordered some delivery, but then she misses out on two great opportunities. One, feeling supported by her husband, and two, allowing him to feel the appreciation when he goes and brings that food in. She's going to go, oh, you care about me. Thank you so much. You just made my life easier. So he feels like, I'm king of the world. I did it. And she feels supported. I'm queen of the world. I've got my king taking care of me. This is couples bonding instead of her just going, hey, can you deliver a pizza? And then it gets delivered and then no one gets to bond at all.
It's so true. It's so true. And some of this might seem nuanced, but it's really, really powerful. And I'm just going to read you a little bit of my message. I just said, thank you so much for asking because you can help me. And I so appreciate it. This is our actual email exchange from today. And then I asked him for some food and gave him some choices of things that sounded good. And I said, you're wonderful to care for me, support me, and love me. What a blessing and comfort you are in my life. So he's already getting appreciation is what I'm telling you. And I know I'm making a big deal over him bringing me in some food, but the truth is this isn't just about him bringing me in the food. This is about that I know he's there for me. And that's the whole point of our conversation here. I know he's there for me, that he's showing up for me, that he wants to make my life easier, better, and happier. And I'm going to give him that chance.
Beautiful. And it all circles back to that study of the amygdala. He's a giver. And obviously Michelle's a giver, and that's why this partnership is going to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. So this is great that I had a real life example from
yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah. So what about when a guy doesn't deliver on what we ask? Like we make a request and we think we do it in a really nice way or whatever, and he bombs out for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen a lot, right? So I built like a 4-step formula for this. So the first step is we go to always our go-to. Like this should be like built into your vocabulary. You would make me the happiest woman in the world if you do X. And so we give them a chance to do it because now you told them, hey, you'd make me happy if you do X. So that's the first thing. Second thing, and you can only say it in one sentence because we don't want to lose our guy.
Right.
When you do X, it makes me feel sad. Or when you do X, it makes me feel, and put a one-word emotion. If we go into a long paragraph or a story, he's not sure. He can sometimes get lost because he's very straight line. So if we talk in man speak, he's going to stay with you and you know you're getting through to him. So when you leave your socks on the floor, it makes me feel frustrated. Let's just use that simple one. I'm like, oh, I don't want you to feel frustrated. Or when you cancel our date last minute, it makes me feel unappreciated. He's like, oh, I don't want her to feel unappreciated. This is the most important person in my life. Let me fix it. And then guys love to fix things. So now you allow him to go into fixing mode, and he'll be like, I'm going to pick up those socks, or I'm taking you on a date. Now, let's say he still doesn't do anything. Now you can go into a full-blown conversation and I would start by getting really curious. The most effective thing you can do in a conversation is not putting a man on a defensive, because once he's on the defensive, it's going to go south.
Right.
But like, why do you leave socks on the ground? Well, my mom used to make me pick them up as a kid, and I never could leave them on. And now that I'm free, it feels like heaven to leave socks on the ground. Okay.
Feels like heaven to leave socks on the ground.
Who knows? So maybe you find like, well, I want you to feel like you're in heaven. How about you do it in the corner over there? And that'll be your spot for socks. So then you can kind of talk through it and understand him. And then you can kind of get to know his childhood. Like, oh, so your mom was kind of, very controlling of how your behavior was. And, obviously I don't want to be your controlling mom. Like, how can we still have our sexy, fun relationship? And, I still feel like I have a cleanly house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's working through things. So now we've given him 3 steps. You make me the happiest woman if you do X. When you do X, I feel sad. Full-blown conversation, coming out of a place of curiosity. And then number 4, if this is something that you cannot put up with, this is a perpetual problem, there is no solution, it's not going away, and it drives you nuts, then you should walk away from the relationship. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, I think there's a way, what you're modeling here is there's a way to ask for what we need, even if someone is doing something that's bothering us or disappointing us, without making them feel like they're attacked, or without making a man feel like he's all bad or that he's just a big, huge disappointment all the way around. So one thing I'm hearing really clearly here is it's about the behavior, not about him. So in this case, it's about the socks on the floor. It's not about him in general. We can still like him and not like that he's leaving the socks on the floor.
Absolutely. And to your point, like, you can even open with a compliment to really soften this. Be like, we have the greatest relationship on the planet. Like, I love being with you. But, it makes me feel sad when you do X. So he knows he's not a failure. He's kicking butt in the relationship. There's just one area of opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I'll say for the women here, because I am one, is that if a woman starts feeling like she's just really exhausted, worn out, overwhelmed in a relationship, then there's a misbalance here. And it may be this shift that we've talked about where the man's kind of relaxed into the relationship and thinks, I don't have to win her now. But that's the exact time when a woman needs to ask for that support so that he can up level. And so we have to, as women, be responsible for being in tune enough with our own needs and our own energy about what's going on. And if we're starting to feel like that depletion, or like we're doing all the work in the relationship, then we have to be in tune enough with our needs to know, okay, that's the time to ask for support and to be clear and in our requests enough that a man knows how he can support and how he can help us. Like, just another really quick example. Last night, I was telling my husband, feeling so busy, I'm feeling so overwhelmed, I have all these things to do, and I'm rattling off this list. I got to do this. And my husband just said, well, I can do such and such, such and such, such and such. So I didn't specifically ask him in that moment. I was just kind of on a little rant, but he could hear that, and he could identify some specific things that he could take off my plate to help release that overwhelm. But what I'm saying is, as women, we have to be able to recognize that when we're feeling that way, that's the time to ask for support.
Oh, I love that. That's so in tune with what you need and just presenting it. And once you present it, then you're giving him the opportunity to go solve a problem. You're not saying, hey, go do this. He's like, ooh, I want to be helpful. and then he can go do it, and then you can appreciate him for it, and you feel supported. So it's beautiful.
Right. And you're not saying, you lazy son of a gun, I'm doing everything around here. I'm taking care of the house. Blah, 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 blah. What are you doing? You're not in one of those kind of rants.
Yeah, those are not received well.
Those are not received well because they make him feel like a failure. They make him feel like he's disappointed you. And if a man feels like he's disappointing you enough times, often enough, he's going to withdraw or disappear.
100% accurate.
Mm-hmm. You can vouch for that one on me, right?
Yeah, you could not have said that more accurately.
So I think this might lead into our next question, what we were just talking about. How do you make sure you don't sabotage a great relationship? Well, one thing is you got to be in tune enough with your own needs. If you start feeling that overwhelm or that things are out of balance or that you're doing all the giving or that doesn't feel like you're receiving what you need, it's time for you to, in the ways we've been talking about, see if that balance can be shifted so that he can rise back up to provide for you. Because really, most good guys, they want to do that for the woman that they care about.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we've talked about this principle, and I think we've beaten it up, but I'll pivot a little bit. I want you guys to find the fun. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, is finding fun in your relationship. And actually, Michelle and I were talking about this offline, is find the fun. But, we kind of get into our groove. And a man kind of goes into all right, now that I've got her, I need to be a provider. Let me go make more money. And, she wasn't dating you so you would make more money. She was dating you because you treated her fantastically. You have fun together and you had similar values. She doesn't really necessarily care that much about the more money. So get back to what you were doing when you were dating. You were exploring each other. You were exploring new cities. You were traveling. You were going to restaurants. You were going to movies. You were walking in the park, you were holding hands. Get back to dating and get back to playing, whether it's board games or just, be like, come here, we're going on a walk. We're gonna swing our arms like we're kids and we're just gonna frolic around on this walk. Get back to play, because when we're in the serious mode, our brain can't really do both, especially as a man. We're either in serious mode or play mode. Women are very similar in this. Get back into play mode. And when you're having all these playful experiences, then when the negative times come, when the socks are on the ground and you're pissed off, you'll be like, well, yesterday we were, swinging our arms. So we got to hang on to those playful moments. So then when the bad ones are happening, we've still got this oh man, we've got so many good things lined up. Sorry, I don't even remember what your question was. Was that what we were talking about?
We were talking about how not to sabotage a relationship, but one way to sabotage a relationship would be to take all of the joy and fun out of it. And sometimes, because life has its serious challenges at times, when we're in a relationship, we just kind of get into the humdrum day-to-day kind of things, and we forget to kind of have those experiences of just enjoying each other, having fun together. And I do think that's a real key to having a happy long-term relationship for sure.
Yes. Ooh, can I tell a story? Oh, go ahead.
No, and I was just going to say, and I told Mike and I did have a conversation about this offline, and I did say to Mike that asking myself this question about everything, how can I make this more fun? Because I believe that even some of the more mundane aspects of life can be enjoyable and fun if we set that intention. And having that playfulness and that energy of having fun together and laughing together and even being a little silly together is one of the things that really bonds a couple together. A sense of humor and having fun together is something that can bring people together, but it's also something that can help people to stay together through just kind of the stressors of life.
Yes, that's so accurate. Thank you. Can I tell a quick story?
Absolutely.
Okay, so in terms of sabotaging a great relationship, I think all of us, in the ideal world, spend some time with just ourselves and we come up with what our triggers are that cause us to go nutso in a relationship. And I have them. Specifically, I just realized the big one that I have. Like, so on every video, I tell everyone that I am a 10 out of 10 words of affirmation. Like, I love compliments. And so then I started to analyze my relationship with my parents. And I realized my dad, like, doesn't necessarily, he loves me and he's the greatest dad on the planet, but he's not one to give me compliments and say I'm doing a good job. That's just not his thing. So because of that, it means the world to me when I get compliments from people and I want to know I'm doing a good job. So then in relationships, I need that because I didn't get it as a child. And so being able to communicate that with our partners, like what my triggers are, and when someone says something negative, like you're doing a bad job and I'm not happy with you, like I just shut down. And then we lose constructive Mike, where I'm going to be capable of solving problems or, being a good partner. I'm just like, I shut down, I'm out of the conversation. So now that, my partner understands how I behave, she can kind of be more strategic when she needs things out of me. And that's why, once again, it goes back to, hey, Mike, you're the best boyfriend ever. You'd make me happy if you do X. I'm like, ooh, she likes me. And if I do X, I'm going to get more appreciation. So that's this formula that will consistently work with someone like me. And a lot of men are a lot like this. So we can get our men to behave the way we want them to. And also they love it by just getting curious by what their triggers are and how we can work best with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this has been really fun, and this has been a really juicy conversation. And I always love connecting with Mike. We always have a really good time. And we always have really good conversations. And I think a lot of the things we've talked about today they have the possibility of literally transforming what you experience in your communication and interactions with men and in relationships. And so I'm glad we were able to have this conversation, and I really appreciate you dancing with me, Mike, and for your contribution. And we really want to acknowledge everyone for being here, because the fact that you're here means you're the kind of woman that's committed to having an extraordinary relationship, and understanding more about men and yourself and communication can make a huge difference in that outcome, in the outcomes that you're experiencing. So, Mike, I want to thank you once again, and bye for now.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. I love all of you. Thanks, Michelle.